Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now we will count out to noon, and we will all keep still. For just once upon this earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a moment and not move our arms so much. It would be an exquisite moment without rush, without engines in motion. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. The fisherman in the cold sea would not harm the whales, and the salt miner would suddenly notice his torn hands. And those who prepare biological wars, chemical wars, and atomic wars for victories with no survivors would put on clean clothes and walk alongside their siblings in the shade, doing nothing. Don't confuse what I want with absolute inaction. Life is what matters. I want nothing to do with death. If we were not so unanimous about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a great silence could interrupt this sadness, this never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. Maybe the earth will teach us that when everything seems dead, all is really alive. Now I will count out to midnight, and you be quiet, and I will go. Liberal or conservative, bankruptcy or bailout, victor, victim. Binary thinking is a way of seeing the world as mutually exclusive opposites at each end of a spectrum. Philosophers and mathematicians have studied binary logic for centuries. Digital computer systems and electronic circuits are based on this logic. If-then decisions fall under binary decision-making. Some years ago, I called to comfort a friend who was going through a very rough patch in her life. When we finished talking, she thanked me for reaching out to her. Then she said, "Parvathy, I know you're not a Hindu, but I know you're a good person. You believe in God. You do. You are a Christian." My lack of religion is never a secret to anyone who spends a little time with me. I could sense, though, that it was important for her that I be religious. That was an example of if-then binary decision-making. It goes like this. Parvathy is a Hindu name. However, she has told me that she's not religious. And yet, she seems like a good enough person. But good people have to be religious. So, Parvathy is a Christian. I did not refute that. There was no point, and it was neither the time nor the place. Why do we do this? Well, humans are tribal by nature. Not that long ago, roughly 10,000 years ago, there was less than 10 million people on this planet. That's less than the population of Pennsylvania today. It was necessary for survival back then to engage in binary decision-making, hunt or be hunted, know who we are and who they are. There were predators to hide from, food to hunt and gather, the elements to brave, and fires to guard. Today, as of April 2017, we are a species of 7.5 billion and growing. That's right. And yet, we continue to frame everything in simplistic either-or paradigms. We are comfortable when we frame things so. Binary thinking gives us the illusion that life is easy and uncomplicated. It ostensibly provides solutions to complex and deep-rooted problems. Any threat to our routine and comfort feels like a personal threat, as if our comfort is our identity. When someone does not agree with us or think like us, it causes stress and cognitive dissonance. And we will do anything to make that dissonance go away. Binary thinking encourages us to distill ideas and theories into a me and not me framework, or better yet, us versus them. We start talking about them as our enemy. Even our language reflects this frame of mind. We go to negotiations and meetings armed with information. We launch arguments. We shoot down the opposition. It, whatever it is, starts to sound a bit like war just about now. The perception of a common enemy reinforces a certain fellowship and lets us believe that we are not to blame because we are the good ones. We are the normal ones. It absolves us of the need to examine ourselves. For example, when we say that someone is in the closet, we waive ourselves of the need to ask a very important question. Who created the conditions that put someone in the closet? At the end of the day, binary categories serve only to keep us divided. They make us blame each other rather than the system that we all are a part of. Let's go to the 911 call about a 12-year-old boy by the name of Tamir Rice. The call lasted a little over 2 minutes. The dispatcher who took the call asks, "What does he look like?" The caller says, "He's wearing a camouflage hat." The dispatcher asks, "Is he black or white?" The caller says, "Gray." "He has a gray coat." The dispatcher asks, "Shout if you know it." Is he black or white? What's interesting is that during those 2 minutes, there was other information and crucial details being provided. The caller said 3 times that the gun could be fake. He also said that the person is sitting on a swing and that he's probably a juvenile. That last bit of information was never conveyed to the police. As for the officers who responded, the child was shot within 2 seconds of their arriving at the scene. The videotapes showed that the vehicle had barely come to a complete stop, and Tamir was not even asked to drop the gun. No, the dispatcher was not white. And no, the officer was not black. This is a tragic but really good example of how the binary paradigms that we create first and then maintain prevent us from fully understanding reality and thus prevent us from finding effective solutions for complex situations or problems. According to its critics, binary thinking lies at the root of most forms of marginalization and oppression. Feminist writer Elena Siksu holds the opinion that binary thinking almost always builds in dominance or privilege. A report by the organization Color of Change found that people will assume a suspect is black, even when they are not. Brandy Collins of the same organization says that in the absence of a clear white suspect, a black or brown suspect is assumed. The problem with binary thinking is that we do not live in a binary world. The disconnect between how we think and how things really are causes cognitive dissonance, which in turn causes reactions such as sustained overactivity in the amygdala. This is the part of our brain that processes our response to emotional stimuli. People tend to feel anxiety, depression, anger, rage, etc. Under those conditions, it is easy to hear what one wants to hear. For example, when a person says immigrant, another might hear criminal. When A says, treat me fairly, B might hear, I hate you. I remember a friend getting very angry at the mention of the word sushi. I didn't ask him to eat sushi. I didn't offer him any. We didn't have sushi in front of us. Just mentioned sushi. He said, I'll eat anything, but I will never eat sushi. That's the one thing I will never do. You cannot make me. And I said, did someone force you to eat sushi? And he said, I would like to see them try. What can I say? The man didn't like sushi, even though he had never tried it. But he sure got worked up just thinking about it. Binary thinking leads us to create opposites that may not really be opposites, but rather comparisons. How can the skin color of people make them opposites? An opposite in what sense? How do we define who's good and who's bad? Must a good person be religious? And what makes a bad person bad? Being transgender? What is even more important is that binary thinking is exclusive by its very nature. Focusing only on the opposite extremes of any issue leads us to ignore the vast in between of all kinds of nuances, complexities, and shades of gray. There is a term for this in logic. This concept is very aptly and very sadly known as the excluded middle. It's a theory. There's a thing. How do we move beyond the exclusive binary to inclusive living? Well, for one, we could tolerate and accept the complex reality that is all around us. Reality offers no absolutes, no safety, no guarantees, no perfection. Instead, there is ambiguity and uncertainty, curveballs and compromises. Being in denial about it or wishing it weren't so does not change reality. We could also take an honest look at ourselves and see how we contribute to the system that we are part of. Extreme positions are very limiting, and our comfort is not who we are. We do not need to be right all the time, because every time we claim that we are right, those on the other end are claiming the exact same thing. The Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai wrote, From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. There must have been a handwritten bit about peace on the screen. That was written by a third grader who, as you know, or as you guessed, has brown skin. Today, he's 31 years old. He can spell possible correctly now. He can write poetry. He can hang drywall. And he can do a lot more than be brown-skinned. He's also engaged to be married to a lovely young woman who's white. They have loved each other for 12 years now. How can we accept or tolerate a world which implies that they are somehow opposites? That one, for some reason or another, has more or less value than the other. Peace is caring for others. Nobel Prize winner and German author Hermann Hesse said that our mind is capable of passing beyond the dividing line we have drawn for it, beyond the pairs of opposites of which the world consists. New insights begin. We humans are resilient and capable of adapting and adjusting to the ever-changing world around us. The key to such adaptation lies not in the avoidance of stress, but in staying with that discomfort, with the discomfort of dissonance, and moving through it and beyond it to viable solutions that work for all of us, not just those at this end and those at the other end. It is interesting how many writers, philosophers, and poets have written about moving beyond binary constructs. In his poem, The Great Wagon, Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi says, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense." In a recent New York Times article, conservative writer David Brooks said that uncertainty and anxiety throw you off the smug island of certainty and force you into the free waters of creativity and learning. Indeed, let us consider that which is different as a possibility and not a threat. Let us give ourselves permission to think, change, adapt, and engage so that we can enjoy the richness of the whole spectrum. Let us move beyond our binary paradigms and step into a future where we won't need to say each other. That is when we will find true comfort. That is when we will find true peace. Thank you. I wish you hope, courage, and peace. Let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers facing them. Let me not beg for the stilling of my pain. Let me not look for allies in life's battlefield. Let me not crave in anxious fear to be saved. Grant me that I may not be a coward, feeling your mercy in my success alone.
But let me find the grasp of your hand in my failure.
So now we're going to all together